So on October 15th, 2021, in Bolton, Vermont, which was a pretty small town, population 5,000, there was a lot of mountains and valleys, and usually if you were the type of person that wanted to retire out into nature, you would move out to Bolton to do that. But on this night is when local police would receive a phone call from a very concerned father reporting his daughter, 22-year-old Emily Ferlazo, missing. He claims that the last time Emily was seen was the night before when her and her husband Joseph went down to Bolton, Vermont to celebrate their 1-year wedding anniversary in their camper. But this was also another special occasion because this would have been the first time that Emily officially met Joseph's family. 42-year-old Joseph Ferlazo was born in Pennsylvania but later moved to Vermont, where he was now a full-time tattoo artist and had a small studio set up in a friend's house. Emily and Joseph had met in Vermont, and about a year into dating is when they decided to pack up all their things in Vermont and move to New Hampshire to live with Emily's parents. And within Emily and Joseph's relationship, they did get a lot of eyes on their relationship, mostly because of their large age gap. Emily was 22 and Joseph was 42, and Emily was a very young, loving, and hard-working young woman. She wanted to dedicate her life to helping people, and during that time, she was actually working on getting her LNA, so her licensed nursing assistant. And then on top of that, she was also an aspiring cosmetologist and had plans of, after completing her licensed nursing assistant school, she would then go into beauty school so that she could accomplish both of her dreams at the same time. Emily was also a very talented singer, and all throughout high school would sing for her school's talent shows. One thing that Joseph and Emily loved to do together was travel. As I mentioned, they had their own camper together that they actually renovated themselves. So it was like a makeshift RV. There was a shower in there, a bed, a kitchenette area, and they did live mostly full-time in this van where they would be traveling to surrounding states. But if at times, if the van needed some maintenance done on it, then they would live with Emily's parents for that meantime. And I also want to mention very, very quickly, kind of as a side note, I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit off in this video. I just recently got over being sick, and so I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit stuffy or kind of goes in and out throughout this video, but I thought I would just quickly mention that just in case it is very noticeable. So on the day of October 15th, this was the day that it was Emily and Joseph's 1-year wedding anniversary, and it was also the very first time that Emily was going to meet Joseph's sister, Nikki. Joseph's sister, Nikki, and and we're actually going to get an Airbnb at this nearby condos in Bolton, Vermont called Bear Run Condos. The plan is that Nikki and her boyfriend were going to spend the night at their Airbnb, while up the road, Emily and Joseph would park their camper and spend the night in their camper. And then the following morning, all four of them would meet up at a local breakfast restaurant in order to have breakfast together, and so that Emily can formally meet Nikki for the very first time. But it was said that on this night of October 15th, Joseph and Emily may have gotten into a small argument because the Bear Run condos was actually the same exact condos that Joseph and his ex-wife used to live in, and his ex-wife still currently lived there. So it was a topic of discussion that this kind of sparked a small argument. And then the next morning for breakfast, when Nikki and her boyfriend went to the restaurant, it was only Joseph that showed up. So Nikki asked him, "Oh, where's Emily?" And that's when Joseph explained that the night before they got to drinking a little bit too much and Emily was feeling way too sick to come out, so she was just staying in the camper for now to just sleep through the morning. And Nikki thought that sucks because she really wanted to meet Emily, but that's completely fine. Over breakfast is when Joseph and Nikki actually made plans to go to Joseph's friend Sarah Lang's house, where Joseph had his small tattoo studio at, and Joseph was gonna give Nikki a tattoo that day. And that's exactly what happened. Later on that day, Joseph went to Sarah Lang's house and Nikki met him up there. Joseph also dropped the camper off at Sarah Lang's house, and then when he got there, Nikki kind of asked Joseph again, where's Emily? Is she still in the camper sleeping? And that's when Joseph confides in Nikki a little bit and says, well, the night before, last night, we kind of got a little bit too drunk and we got into a pretty heated argument, and that led Emily to leave and get an Uber home. So she's not actually in the camper, she's actually back at her parents' house, but I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want all of this drama to ruin your guys' vacation. And so then later on that night, Joseph and Nikki ended up getting dinner together. And then after dinner, that's when Joseph went back to Emily's parents' house, assuming that the night before when Emily got the Uber home, she most likely just went back to her parents' house. But when Joseph got there, that's when he realized that Emily wasn't there. So he starts to talk to Emily's parents and explains to them that they had an argument the night before. Emily ended up getting an Uber home, but he just kind of assumed that maybe Emily got an Uber back to her parents' house. But now that Emily wasn't there, they all started to get extremely worried. And so then that's when Emily's father and Joseph decided to call the police.
Hey Joseph, this is Trooper Cody from State Police.
Hello?
Hey, so I just got off the phone with your father-in-law, and it sounds like there's some concern about maybe where Emily may be.
Yes.
What do we know at this point, I guess? Or what can you tell me?
She was with me, and then she said she was gonna get an Uber. So she asked me to drop her off in the parking lot, and I dropped her off. I went to the gas station, grabbed her Coke, and when I went back, she had already been picked up. I'm looking for her, I couldn't find her, and then I haven't been able to make contact with her since, and that was like Saturday afternoon.
So after you just noticed she was gone, you just decided to just leave, I guess?
I drove up and down the road looking to see if she started down the road, and I drove up and down to both ways, and then I didn't see her walking.
Okay, so you figured the Uber or something picked her up?
Yeah, she said she was getting an Uber.
Okay. But she had her cell phone with her at that time?
Yes.
And like her purse or wallet or something with some money?
Yeah, she had like a wallet with cards in it.
Okay. And now about what time was this? Did you drop her off, would you say?
Maybe like a little afternoon, maybe like 12:30. Like 12:30.
Where did your van break down?
Well, it didn't break down. It smoked, and then I brought it to the shop. It's supposed to get inspection, and then she turned like super violent, and I'm trying to pull her back in. So come on, let's go get something to eat. And she just, she kicked me in the groin and punched me, and I was like, okay. I was like, you just need some food. Like, you need maybe some coffee and some food. And she was just like, no, fuck that, fuck you, and she just started swinging and kicking.
And so this phone call, as you could tell, is very, very confusing because at one point Joseph claims that he had dropped Emily off in Bolton, that he had just dropped her off somewhere, but then was also claiming that she just got an Uber home. And then there was another part in his story where he had claimed that they couldn't really go anywhere in the camper because the camper's transmission was shot and he needed to take it to the shop the next day. But then in the same breath says that he was pretty easily driving the camper up and down the road trying to look for Emily. Now, the trooper that was on this case, Trooper Cody, acted quick to this case. Literally just like an hour after that phone call with Joseph, Trooper Cody and a couple of other officers were already at Sarah Lang's house questioning her and her family. And when the officers got to Sarah Lang's house, they noticed something a little bit odd when they pulled up, is that Joseph's camper was literally parked like right next to the driveway of the home, home, which was crazy because just a while later, Joseph was claiming that his camper was still in the shop. And so when they see that the camper is still there, they talk to Sarah Lang, they talk to her family. Police go into the van and they basically just do like a quick scan of the van. They're just kind of like looking at things and not looking into things or under things. And that's when they end up towing the camper down to the police station to try to get a more in-depth search. But what the police don't know when they're investigating the van and while they're investigating the van is that Joseph and his friend Spencer actually drove past them at one point and then drove past them again. Technically at this point it's Sunday, so it's like around 2 in the morning the next day. So that night at around 11 p.m. after speaking with police, that's when Joseph decides to hang out with his friend Spencer at around 11:20 p.m. He goes over to his friend Spencer's house, and then I'm assuming during this hangout they had made plans for the next day to go out with Joseph's camper. And so Joseph had told Spencer, okay, well, I don't really want to do it like in the morning tomorrow. Why don't we just do it right now? So then that's when Spencer and Joseph then get in Spencer's Honda Civic and they drive over to Sarah Lang's house to pick up his camper van and then bring it back to Spencer's house. And Spencer had even claimed that when he saw Joseph was acting a little bit odd and he wasn't really talking. He was very quiet. And at one point, Spencer even asked him, is everything okay? And then that's when Joseph was like, yeah, everything's fine. I just really, really want to get my camper. So they're driving to go to Sarah Lang's house to pick up Joseph's camper. And as they're driving past the house, that's when Spencer says that he sees about 3 to 4 squad cars all surrounding the camper van. And when Spencer sees this, he looks to Joseph and Joseph looks panicked. So Joseph tells Spencer to keep on driving. But at the end of this road, it was a dead end. So they ended up taking a U-turn. And then when they started driving past the house again, that's when Joseph continued to tell Spencer, just drive past them. Don't look at them. Just drive past. And Spencer at this point is getting a little bit panicked because he's asking Joseph, are those cop cars for you? What's going on? Is everything okay? And that's when Joseph starts to tell Spencer, no, not everything is okay. I did something really, really bad. And then that's when Spencer would ask Joseph, did you hurt Emily? And Joseph would say yes. And that's when Spencer would ask Joseph, is Emily alive? And Joseph said no. And once Spencer heard this, his whole body just sank and he immediately started yelling at Joseph to get out of the car, to which Joseph did. He got out the car and just started walking alongside the road, and Spencer immediately called the police.
Vermont 911, where is your emergency?
Yes, my name is Spencer Lemons. I've got a guy that is going towards St. Albans on Route 36. Trying to make a long story short, he's a friend of mine. Came to my house. He lives in a bus thing. And he was like, hey, can we go pick up my bus? And we go to pick up his bus in St. Albans, and there's a bunch of cops outside. I said, what the heck is going on? He says he killed his wife. I got him out of my car. He's on this road, and I guess there's a bunch of state troopers at that place on somewhere in St. Albans. There's like 4 cops there, and I was like, no, but you got to get out of my car. And I was afraid. I got to get him out. We got to go back to my house. I'm like, are those cops for you? What is going on? And I said, what is going on? He says, my wife was in. He said, I did something really bad. I said, what did you do? And he said that his wife is inside that bus. And I said, is she alive? And he goes, no, I don't want to go to prison. Just get on my car right now. I'm calling the cops.
All right, and so when he told you that, were you in Fairfield or were you in St. Albans, do you know?
I'm in Fairfield right now. That's where he was. I just kicked him out of my car on 36 because I don't know if he's got a weapon or anything.
Okay, so you don't know if he has a weapon? Okay, and what is
I
his
do not
name?
know. His name is Joseph Ferlazzo, Ferlazzo.
So Joseph wouldn't actually get officially arrested until October 19th, 4 days after Emily was reported missing. And the way he would be found and arrested is completely by accident. Another trooper that was on the case, her name was Trooper Amy. And on October 19th, she was working on Emily's case. And the only things that they really had right now was the camper van and the testimonies from other people, like Spencer's phone phone call, for example. And so they didn't really have anything specifically to connect Joseph to the crime. And so Trooper Amy knew that they were most likely going to have a pretty long night that night. So she wanted to go down the street to a convenience store to pick up some energy drinks and snacks for her team. And so she went there, but when she got there, she was about to pull into a parking space. And I feel like this is a situation that I feel like a lot of people have been through before, when you're trying to park in a specific space and then all of a sudden like a random person just starts walking slow as ever across the space. So it's this like awkward interaction of like, I don't want to hit you, but I also don't want to go super slow because this is already really awkward. And so because of that interaction, she had remembered the man a lot more, and he was just wearing a black hoodie with his hood up. So when she finally parked, she went inside the convenience store, went straight to the coolers where the energy drinks was, and that's where she saw the hooded man was. And as she was walking to the coolers, that's when she made eye contact with this man. And it was only for a quick second. And at first, Trooper Amy thought that he looked familiar, but couldn't really get like a good look at him. So she starts walking to the coolers. This hooded man starts walking away. And that's when him and her make eye contact for a second time. And once they made this second eye contact, that's when Amy turns over to her partner and says, I think that's Joseph Ferlazo. I think that's the guy that we've been trying to look for to like question him. So Trooper Amy then follows Joseph outside. And at first she yells to him and she says, hey, Joseph, but he continues to walk. He doesn't turn around. And then that's when she says again, hey, state police, I just want to talk to you for a second. And that's when Joseph stops walking and he turns around and looks at Amy, and she asks him, Joseph, are you okay? And he just drops his shoulders and he says, no, I'm not okay. And even though Joseph knew that he wasn't officially under arrest, Trooper Amy said, we're not arresting you. We're just wanting to ask a couple of questions to you. Everyone's wondering where Emily is. And so that's when Joseph says, okay, I'll go down to the station and I'll answer some questions. And even through most of his interrogation, he was being quite honest about what happened.
At that point, I learned that the state police was notified the prior day of a missing person, Emily Ferlazo, that there were some suspicious circumstances surrounding that Mr. Ferlazo, Emily's husband, had told a friend that he had killed her, and that the state police had seized a camper van as well as a Jeep that belonged to Mr. Ferlazo. I decided to go to the store knowing it was going to be a late night. I wanted an energy drink and some snacks for the team once they got there. So I believe it was around 2 p.m.
Did you recognize the male?
When he closed the door to the cooler and he turned around and we made eye contact, I was like, wait, I know this person. In that moment, I couldn't figure out where or why. He walked to the right and then turned to walk up to one of the aisles towards the front of the store, and he turned and looked at me again. At that point, I recognized that it was Joseph Ferlazo.
Hello everyone, it's still me, thanking the sponsor of today's episode, IQ Bar, our exclusive snack sponsor. IQ Bar is the better for you plant protein based snacks made with brain boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. IQ Bar's plant protein bars are packed with high quality ingredients to keep you physically and mentally fit. It's completely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial sweeteners for a natural anytime snack. You can try their 9 delicious flavors, including mint chocolate chip, chocolate sea salt, banana nut, toasted coconut chip, lemon blueberry, and peanut butter chip. I've personally been obsessed with IQ Bar recently. I feel like I'm a very big snack person, and sometimes when I'm grabbing snacks throughout the day, I just kind of grab something that looks, and I don't really think about if that snack is good for me, but I feel like with IQ Bar, I never have to think that way, and my personal favorite flavor is the peanut butter chip. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are starting their days on the right foot with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text BEHIND to 64,000, text BEHIND to 64,000, that's BEHIND to 64,000, message and data rates may apply, see term for details.
He was very open with police, and he was just saying, I know exactly why I'm here. I'm not dumb. You guys probably talked to Spencer already. And then he goes on to say, quote, I effed up, plain and simple. I had a relapse and I did something I cannot undo, so here we are.
I think what would be helpful for me is just have you start from the beginning.
So I came to Vermont. I was living in New Hampshire for like the last 2 months with my wife and her family. And I came to Vermont. We were supposed to have like a weekend away, like vacation, do some camping, like have some fun. And like as soon as I like put the vehicle in park, like my wife went completely berserk, like completely psychotic. And I shot her.
Joseph at first claims that when they got to Bolton, Emily just randomly went berserk, and then that's when Joseph shot Emily during this altercation. But to clarify that story a little bit, Joseph goes on to say that since it was their wedding anniversary, he was trying to set the mood by lighting red candles, turning on some music. It even began pouring the both of them some wine, but to this, Joseph said that Emily was in a drunken rage and started throwing candles at him, started kicking him and punching him. And when the police asked Joseph, where did exactly she throw the candles at you and kick and punch you? Joseph claimed that he was mostly getting hit on his arms, but also claimed that it was very blurry and that he couldn't remember much. And this also wouldn't be the first time within Joseph's interrogation where he would claim that Emily was extremely abusive. Joseph would claim that throughout their entire relationship, Emily was extremely abusive and would always hit, kick, punch. But what's odd about this is that after Joseph's interrogation, when the police were taking pictures of his body, like if you look at the photos that were taken of his body, I don't even think a single hair was harmed on his body. There wasn't even any like old bruises or old cuts that could probably support his claim of ongoing abuse. It literally seemed like he was not injured at all. And he was claiming in this interrogation that just 4 days earlier, he was getting candles thrown at him. And then within Joseph's interrogation is when he would confess to shooting Emily in the head. He claims that he doesn't really remember much of the night because it was very blurry, but he remembers that at one point he just thought to himself, quote, enough is enough. And then after that, he took the Glock pistol that they had underneath their pillow and he shot Emily twice in the head.
Do you know what kind of pistol?
It was a Glock pistol.
A Glock? Whose Glock is it? Okay. Where is the Glock now?
In the bus.
It's in the bus? Okay. Can you describe Emily when you shot her? And what was she doing?
She had stopped fighting and she had gone and laid down. And I went and jumped on top of her and I shot her in the head.
Okay. How many times?
2.
Joseph says that after he shot Emily, there was a lot of blood coming from her head. And so that's when he just took a trash bag and put a trash bag over her head to try to control the bleeding. And then after that, he started to take multiple other garbage bags and just put a bunch of things surrounding Emily inside. And then when the detectives asked Joseph, okay, well, what did you do with Emily's body? Where is Emily's body now? And that's when Joseph says that her body was currently still in the camper van in the trash bags. So the detectives ask him, well, do you mean you put her whole body in a trash bag? And that's when Joseph goes on to say that in the van they had a saw, and so he decided to take the saw and dismember Emily's body and put portions of her body throughout 8 different garbage bags. And those specific garbage bags were currently still in the camper van on the bathroom floor. And the way that Joseph is explaining the crime and everything that he did, he says it so calmly as if he's just telling a normal story. And even when he explains the portion where he puts a garbage bag over Emily's head, he even says, quote, I put a bag over it.
So I cut her body and put it in multiple bags.
Tell me about that. How did you cut her body?
I
then cut her body into smaller, wrapped it up. I was going to take it in the woods. Yeah. Where did you do that? In the bus. On the bus? Yeah. Where's the stop? On the bus. Where's Emily? In the bathroom.
Now, going more in depth about the evidence that was found in the camper van. As soon as the officers walked into the camper van, into the driver's side cup holder, that's when they found Emily's wedding ring. When they investigated Emily's wedding ring, they did find reddish brown stains on the inside of the ring, and this could actually implicate that possibly Emily was murdered with the ring on, and then the ring was later removed after she was murdered. In the camper van, they would also find various cleaning supplies, such as an empty bottle of bleach in a trash can, and then in the passenger side they would find a Swiffer wet jet. And when they looked at the Swiffer wet jet pad, that's when they found the same exact reddish brown stains on the bottom and top of the Swiffer pad. Police would also locate 6 different firearms in the van, and the ones that were photographed was a shotgun at the end of the bed, a Glock pistol underneath one of the pillows, and a 9mm Taurus pistol in one of the kitchen drawers. They also found in a kitchen cubby that was right above the bed, inside of the cubby was ammunition as well as a silencer or a suppressor. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically an attachment that you put onto a gun as a way to muffle the explosion sound if it were to be shot off. Usually this is something that's used in hunting, but it was believed that this silencer was actually on the Glock at one point. And when police were able to do an autopsy of Emily's body, they found that there were indeed 2 gunshot wounds found in her head, and they believed that was her cause of death. But something else that the medical examiners found, they also found that Emily had suffered 18 stab wounds from 3 different kitchen knives, and in the camper van on the kitchen block, there were actually 3 kitchen knives that were missing from the kitchen block. And the medical examiner described this to be an overkill, because if Joseph's intention was to purely kill Emily, why would he then feel the need to stab her 18 times more after the fact using 3 different kitchen knives?
I have her as an estimated length of 5 foot 3 inches and a weight of 128 pounds.
Did you observe fatal injuries?
I did.
Can you describe those injuries?
Ms. Ferlazo had 2 gunshot wounds to her head. The entrances were on the left side, the exits on the right side. She also had multiple post-mortem, after death, stab wounds.
Were you able to determine whether these 18 stab wounds occurred before or after Ms. Ferlazo died?
I was.
How were you able to determine that?
So when you stab somebody or wound somebody in any way, you disrupt the small vessels, the microvasculature. Well, sometimes you disrupt big vessels too, but there's bleeding involved. The bleeding is really a result of having blood pressure. Your heart's beating, your vessels are all having a liquid under pressure. So when those vessels are disrupted, the blood essentially squirts out and causes hemorrhage surrounding those wounds. Ms. Ferlazo's wounds did not have any evidence of that. Vital reaction is what we call it.
And then after Joseph's interrogation, that's when Joseph was arrested for first-degree murder and sat in jail for 3 years with no bond until his trial came up in December of 2024. Now, surprisingly, Joseph was pleading not guilty. He was claiming that the only reason he shot Emily was out of self-defense, which is very, very opposite to the story that he told at the interrogation. Now, as you will see with Joseph's story throughout his trial and his whole defense team, his story does not line up whatsoever with what he said at the interrogation. Now, the first witness to come to the stand was Joseph's sister, Nikki, where she would talk about the Saturday morning, the day after October 15th, where she went to breakfast with Joseph.
Who went with you?
Me, Ariel, and Joe.
Did you ask Mr. Ferlazo where Emily was?
Yes, but he just told us, like that she was just sleeping, like or like a bad mood or something. So I didn't really ask any further.
Can you describe what his demeanor was like at breakfast?
To be honest, he seemed fine the whole weekend. I mean, obviously, like he did tell me, like that they fought at one point, and that she ran off, but during breakfast he seemed fine.
Now, at first, a lot of people were under the impression that possibly Nikki and Emily had met on October 15th, but there was actually a text message that was sent off on October 15th at around 9:39 p.m. where Joseph would text Nikki, quote, "Hey, we're going to take the night to rest. You still drink coffee? We'll see you tomorrow morning." And this text message kind of suggests that maybe Emily and Nikki never actually met that day and was planning on meeting the next morning at breakfast. And another witness to come to the stand was actually Emily's mother, who claimed that about a year into Emily and Joseph's relationship, they began living part-time at Emily's parents' house. Because as I mentioned, Joseph and Emily would take their van and travel around, but at times when the van needed like maintenance or needed an oil change, or they just didn't really feel like traveling, they would go and park the van at Emily's parents' house and stay with them for the meantime. But Emily's mother goes on to say that while Joseph and Emily were there, she did start to notice a couple signs of abuse between Emily and Joseph. There was one specific time where Emily's mother had seen some gauges on Emily's chest, and then when she asked Emily where they came from, Emily claimed that she just got those scratches from the dog. There was another time where Emily's mother saw a huge bruise on the back of Emily's arm, and when Emily's mom asked where she got that from, Emily's mother claimed that Emily refused to tell her where it came from. And then there was a third occurrence where Emily had very random bruises all over the inner parts of her thighs, and when Emily's mother asked her again where those came from, Emily claimed that they had just came from rough sex. But over time, specifically on New Year's, it was said that Emily would start to open up to her mother about the abuse going on in the relationship, where she would call her mom crying, talking about how abusive Joseph actually is to her. And then there was even a video that Emily had sent to her mother where she was basically locked in the bathroom. Joseph was on the other side of the door screaming at her and yelling at her to get out, but Emily was just kind of locked in there crying, and that was the video that she had sent her mom.
What did you see or observe that led you to the conclusion that their marriage might be having some problems?
So it was a phone call from Emily near midnight stating that she had been in a fight with him and that he had pushed her, and she was crying. And then later she went into a room to be by herself away from him. And then she recorded herself in that separate room with him on the other side talking to her.
Were they arguing?
She wasn't saying anything to him, but he seemed to be upset that she was in a separate room from him.
And after that, were there periods of time when Emily was considering divorce?
Yes.
But as far as you know, that happened more than once that she talked about divorce, right?
Yes.
But they always reconciled. Is that right as well?
Yes.
Emily's mother would also go on to tell even more stories where there were times where she was in the car with Emily and Joseph. Usually Emily would be driving and Joseph would be in the passenger, but she noticed that the two would get into a lot of arguments. There would be times where they would be in an argument and Joseph would try to take control of the wheel and try to veer the car off the road.
When he or Emily were driving me places, when she was driving, he would do things like grab the steering wheel on her, change the station, poke at her body.
So I'm going to use a word, he was like heckling her, is that right?
I can say when observing that
Yeah.
situation, I was very concerned about our safety.
Okay. How did Emily react?
She was telling him to stop.
Okay. Was he laughing, or did he, for example, do you think it was a joke?
I don't remember hearing him laughing.
Okay.
As far as Joseph's defense, there was only one testimony, and it was Joseph himself that actually labeled himself as a witness to the crime. Joseph claimed that in the beginning of his and Emily's relationship, everything was kind of going smoothly. They were traveling the same wavelength, and they really enjoyed doing van life together and just living in their camper full time. But he said that over time is when they started to argue more and more, and these arguments later turned physical. But Joseph claims that he actually never really put his hands on Emily. There was only a couple of times that he could remember where he had put his hands on Emily and made marks on Emily. He goes on to tell this one story about how Emily was just arguing with him and was trying to hit him. So he had put his hands around Emily's arms to her side, kind of holding her down, and claimed that he did that until she just, quote, she just kind of ran out of steam, but again, never hit her back.
First she threw your phone at you and it hit you in the head?
Yeah, right here.
What did you do?
I was shocked. It was the first time that I've ever seen that side of her. So, and then the punches started coming in, so I just naturally defend myself. I block the punches and I sort of find my way out of the chair, and she wasn't stopping, so I had to physically catch her arms, and I had to hold her arms by her sides until she sort of ran out of steam, just restraining her.
Was she saying anything to you while this was happening?
Yeah, just really, she was really angry. So, you're a fucking asshole. I don't want to. Do I have to swear? Do I have to quote?
I want you to say what she said.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she would say, you're a fucking asshole. I can't believe you're still fucking talking to this bitch. You told me you were gonna stop talking to her. And it was a friend of mine that I'd known for years, and I told her that I would stop being physical with this friend and that our relationship wasn't going to dissolve because we were friends since 2014, just with respect to the monogamy that Emily had requested, I stopped being physical with her. I opened up communication to tell her that I wasn't continuing a sexual relationship with Victoria like I had previously said, that it was strictly friendship, only platonic. There was no reason for her to be upset. Her and I were very physical. We were always together.
Who are you talking about?
Emily. Yeah,
Emily
and I had there was no issues where I wanted to, at that moment, at that time, I didn't want to be with anybody else.
Okay.
But I was messaging a client that I was interested in more than a professional relationship with, and Emily came in and she saw I was sending like a GIF, and when Emily came into the room, she had her laptop computer, and she saw what I was doing, and she assaulted me with her laptop.
What does that mean? She assaulted you?
She jumped on the bed and struck me in the head. She hit me. She had the laptop and she hit me with it.
Where?
In my head.
What part of your head?
The back of my head on the right side, I guess. Yeah, she said things like, you're a piece of shit, and something about pathetic. Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot of other verbiage, but...
So when Joseph actually starts talking about the night of the murder, that's when he claims that he actually shot Emily out of self-defense, because Emily was arguing with him over something, and then Joseph was trying to crawl over Emily to get to the other side of the bed. Emily had kneed him in the groin and pulled out the gun that was underneath her pillow.
That's what happened.
What happened?
She said, that's it, you're dead. And she threw her arm under her pillow, and she pulls her hand out with the Taurus. And
how were you feeling?
I was feeling horrified. Just
Were
like,
you afraid?
I was terrified. Like there was as soon as I saw that, like I just felt like this like wave of heat, just like red hot. And she started like pushing her body up in an instant, and I'm like, no. I know, like she wasn't stopping, and she started just like coming up at me, and I just fired.
Why?
She was gonna shoot me.
And you were afraid?
Very. I shook her.
You shook her?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I wasn't sure if she was dead. And she just fell lifeless, and she was gone. Like, I sat with her body, and I touched her hair, I touched her back, and I talked to her.
Do you have any idea what time of day or night this might have been?
This was probably after 2 a.m.
Now, already in Joseph's story, there are some inconsistencies. Like, as you saw from the crime scene photos, the Taurus was not underneath the pillow. The Glock was underneath the pillow. And the Taurus was actually found in a nearby kitchen drawer, even though in Joseph's story, he claims that it was the Taurus that was underneath the pillow, and the Glock he just like randomly found and had in his hand at one point. So as you could tell, this story that Joseph is telling at trial is completely different to the one that he was telling at his interrogation. And the story that Joseph was going along with at his interrogation lined up perfectly with the crime scene. Joseph went into very gruesome detail about the murder of Emily, how he shot her twice in the head, how he had dismembered her body with a saw, and that saw was later recovered. It seemed like everything that he was saying in his interrogation perfectly lined up to exactly what he did. But now Joseph was claiming that he doesn't remember the interrogation at all, and even says like, oh yeah, I see myself in that video, I see myself in that interrogation, but like that did not happen. Like it just didn't happen.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your taped interview with the police. At the time you talked to them, when was the last time you had slept?
Friday. I woke up Friday morning.
First time you saw the video, what was your reaction to seeing yourself and hearing what you said?
It was revolting. My reaction was disgust. I was revolted to see and hear. It's just, I was like so like depersonalized, like disassociated. Just I don't know how to. It was revolting to me to watch that video.
The first time you saw the video, did you remember participating? Do you have memories of that interview occurring?
No, it's no. When I watched that video, it's like I don't know if anyone here has ever gone blackout and then come to and found videos and photos where that you just can't explain. Like I see myself on the video, but I don't remember being there.
You don't remember being there. You don't remember anything that you said.
Now, I'm assuming why Joseph was trying to retract on all of this was mostly because he had said way too much in his interrogation, and it was going to be really, really hard for him to backpedal. So it was just easier for him to say, I don't remember, or that didn't happen, because I'm also assuming that probably in the moment when he was being very honest at his interrogation, he thought that to some extent, if he was very, very honest, then he would just get a lighter sentence or be let go. But now it's 3 years later. He's been in prison for 3 years. So he's trying everything in the book to try to get out of this. Now, this is something that actually wasn't mentioned at the trial, but this was something that I found just like while researching the case, was that the day before Joseph's arrest, the Vermont police had gotten in contact with the Pennsylvania police, asking them about a cold case from back in 2009 when Joseph's stepmother named Young Hee Lim Ferlazo Ferlazzo, who was then 39 years old, was found stabbed to death in her apartment. When the police actually went to go and question Joseph's father, his name was Joseph, he was actually the owner of his own therapeutic spa. They ended up arresting 2 more women at the spa for prostitution, and one of those women was the sister of Joseph's stepmother. But again, this case just kind of went cold for so many years, for decades, and even now the police, the Pennsylvania and Vermont police, will not disclose the conversation that they had about the cold case. Joseph claims that after he shot Emily, he sat in the van in silence for about 15 minutes, kind of coming to terms with what he just did. He also said that their dog Remington, or Remy, was there with him, so he decided to pick up Remy. He drank more vodka, and him and Remy just sat there and mourned together over the death of Emily.
I sat with Remy and we mourned together, and we were just like so scared and confused. And I remember drinking from the bottle, and I remember it being sun up, and I remember making some coffee. I had a French press and some coffee grounds and made some coffee. Took Remington out, drank some coffee, and then I don't know, like I was just like, I was really shook. So I just I was having a hard time focusing, you know. I just remember like my mind was like working in loop or something. Like I just kept seeing it happen over and over. It was terrible.
And then later on that night into the next morning is when Joseph had to meet up Nikki for breakfast. And so that's exactly what he did.
She asked, is Emily joining us? I lied and told her that Emily was still sleeping.
Why did you lie?
We talked about how their trip was for their vacation, and that she didn't want us to bring our drama to their vacation. So I didn't want to dump that on her.
So your testimony is that you didn't tell her that you shot Emily because you were honoring her request not to bring drama?
Yes. Yes, I didn't want to bring the drama to her vacation.
Okay.
Which that portion in particular is very eerie to me, how he relates to him murdering Emily as drama. And I think it really just shows you how in Joseph's mind, it seems like he just doesn't really understand the severity of what he did. If he's viewing this murder as just drama that he doesn't want anybody else to deal with. And then that's when Joseph said that he took the van from Bolton all the way down to Sarah Lang's house to give Nikki that tattoo. But on the way to Sarah Lang's house, Joseph said that he had stopped at a river that him and Emily would always swim at, and in that river he would dump a lot of belongings. And then after Joseph went to the river to drop off those belongings is when he went to Sarah Lang's house to do Nikki's tattoo. Now, prior to the trial, Joseph did undergo a psychiatric evaluation by a forensic psychologist by the name of Dr. Thomas Powell, who claimed that he believed Joseph had met the criteria for major substance abuse as well as elements of a personality disorder, more specifically narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. And for those who don't know what NPD is a mental health condition characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy for others. And a study done back in 2024 by a woman named Dr. Anna Pickering, she claimed that not only do 1 in 200 people in the US have NPD, but 75% of people who have NPD in the US are men. And when looking into the brain scan of a neurotypical person and someone with NPD, you notice that the person with NPD, there is a lot of blank space and things look a lot dimmer, specifically in the prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is probably one of the most important parts of your brain. It has to do with decision making, planning, and self-control. And those with NPD have a lack of those things. And another study that was done at the University of Roehampton back in 2020 by two men named Mark Hadbacker and Elias Tassanikos, they basically had a group of participants, people with NPD, and they wanted to basically find out what happened in the brain of a person who has NPD when confronted with a very confronting situation. And so what they did is that they sat all of them down in front of a screen, and what they would do is they would flash negative and positive words up on the screen. So on the screen it would say positive words like excellent, amazing, and then they would also flash negative words like worthless and disappointed. And what they found is that when they flashed a positive word like amazing and then immediately later flashed something up like worthless or disappointed, they found that those with NPD tended to react very quickly without hesitation. And this sort of study kind of ties into a lack of self-control. They are very quick to react when they are met with things that hurt their ego or make them uncomfortable. And from the brain scans that I showed you a while ago, another person that was working on this study, his name was Alan Taylor, and he's an expert on multiple different personality disorders, and he found that in the brain of a person with NPD was not only affecting their prefrontal cortex, but was also affecting their hippocampus or their hippocampi. And for those who don't know, your hippocampus or hippocampi is basically just responsible for your memories. Now, this is very, very important because although it is very easy for a person with NPD to forget memories, it is also very easy for them to forget the feelings associated with that memory. And what Alan goes on to say in this article is, quote, "They are impaired in their ability to remember what previous experiences felt like. This is why they have trouble learning from their mistakes. Their weakness in emotional memory means that they can get over emotional pain quickly and easily, certainly much faster and easier than a neurotypical person can. They assume that their victims can and do get over emotional pain as quickly and as easily as they do. So they act like nothing happened. They assume that you just got over it, whatever it was, just like they did. They cannot grasp the idea that emotional injury can have long-lasting or permanent effects. They assume that, like them, you can get over anything. To them, nothing happened, and that's because they simply just struggle to recall what it felt like." And if you are a person with NPD, that doesn't mean that all hope is lost. There is a lot of treatments available, such as psychotherapy, as a way to regulate and kind of neutralize your responses to certain situations. And I also want to quickly mention that having NPD is like a lot of disorders in that it is a spectrum. So you could have mild symptoms or you could have very severe symptoms where it's taking over your life. And I also want to mention that having a normal amount of narcissism is normal amongst a lot of people. It is important actually to feel good about yourself, to feel proud of yourself. And it is completely normal and fine to call yourself things such as beautiful or talented or smart, but it becomes a level of narcissism where you are then using those beliefs about yourself to put yourself above people and look down on those who are under you. So instead of you just saying that I am beautiful, you are now saying everyone else is ugly and I am the only one that's beautiful. Everyone else is untalented and I am the only one with talent. Everyone else is dumb and I am the only one that's smart. Your true self-love begins to wash away and the person really starts to ride on all of that ego where they become very controlling of those around them to make sure that that ego is not harmed in any way, because if that ego is harmed, then that means the persona that they let on is also harmed. So they become a lot more controlling to the people around them. They want people to believe that they are the best of the best and that no one and nothing could compare to them. Now, relating all of this back to Joseph, there are multiple times in Joseph's trial where he tries to turn around and cry. Like, he can't even really answer questions because he's just turning around crying and he doesn't want to cry in front of everyone. But what's so eerie about it is when he turns back around, there is no tears in his eyes whatsoever. His eyes aren't red. His nose isn't red. His eyes don't even look watery even. He even at one point when talking about Emily says, quote, quote, I miss her, which again is very contradictory to what he was talking about. Throughout his entire trial, he was claiming that Emily was the prime abuser in their relationship and that he had killed her out of self-defense. All of those things of him trying to downplay his crime really just shows you the connection about how he just does not feel the emotional tie to the crime anymore. So now to him, looking back on this, it doesn't really seem as big of a deal as it was. And so that is why Joseph is doing everything he can to try to get himself out of prison. He doesn't care anymore about telling the truth, about giving justice and closure, or at least a little bit of closure to Emily and her family. He simply doesn't care about any of that anymore. And the only thing he does care about is saying the right things to get him out of prison. And another person that was called to the stand was Spencer, Joseph's friend that he had saw that night, and the friend that drove with Joseph past the camper, and he saw all of those squad cars. Spencer was brought up to the stand to talk about his story, and he basically said that Joseph showed up that night in his red Jeep to Spencer's house at around 11:20 p.m. They were talking and making plans of going and using Joseph's camper the next day to go for a hike, and then that's when Joseph said, oh, well, I don't want to go out in the morning to get my camper. Let's just do it right now. It's actually parked back at Sarah Lange's house. So Spencer and Joseph get into Spencer's Honda Civic. They drive over to Sarah Lange's house, and then that is when Spencer discovers 3 to 4 squad cars all in front of his camper and searching inside of his camper.
I asked him, what's going on, man? You need to tell me what's going on. If I'm going to be driving past police officers, I need to know what is going on.
And did he respond to you?
He did.
How did he respond?
He responded to me with, there's a lot going on. I wish I could see my grandmother. And then I said, what is going on? He said, Emily is back in the van. I said, is Emily alive? He said, no. And I asked, did you hurt her? And he said, yes. And then he started getting fidgety in the car. He started going like this, moving around, reaching for the car door handle. I didn't know if he had anything on his person that would maybe cause harm to myself, so I immediately stopped the vehicle and told him to get out.
What did you do when Joseph got out of the car?
I immediately turned around towards my house to put distance between myself and him so I could make a 911 call for the information he just gave me.
And then the next and final person to come to the stand was another trooper. He was actually the trooper that was on the phone with Joseph when Joseph was talking about Emily's disappearance. He claimed that when he was talking to Joseph's voice sounded very monotone the entire time and was talking very calmly. And he also noticed that when he was talking to Joseph, his story would change up so often. He would say at one point his camper was at the shop, and then he all of a sudden got like a ride from the shop to Sarah Lange's house, and then instead of doing the tattoo, he just took his motorcycle down to Emily's house. But that wouldn't really make sense because at some point in the night he did do Nikki's tattoo, and they also went to dinner together that night. And at this point in the trial, it would also be shown that multiple text messages would be found over the course of the days of Emily's disappearance and everyone looking for her. So over the course of those days, Joseph was actively texting Emily. His first text on October 16th, 2021. So this would be the next day on Saturday, shortly after breakfast with Nikki. Joseph texted Emily at 1:09 p.m. saying, quote, babe. And then another at 1:12 p.m. saying, what are you doing? Talk to me, please. He sent off another one at 1:52 saying, where are you, lovey? I wanted to ride with you today. He texted another time at 2:02 p.m. saying, I'm at the Langes, call me. And then after that sent another text saying, the blank on the bus is smoking with an emoji at the end. Later on, 2:57, he texted her again saying, quote, whatever, I'm gonna spend time with Nikki while I can, call me. And later on that night, after getting dinner with Nikki, that's when Joseph would text Emily again. He texted her at 8:09 p.m. saying, WTF, babe. The next day, October 17th, so for context, This was the day after like he saw the camper van and all of those squad cars. At this point, Joseph knows 100% that Emily is dead. He knows 100% what he did to Emily. It's just the police don't know yet what Joseph did to Emily. So on October 17th, 2 days before his arrest, Joseph texted Emily again at 8:45 a.m. saying, "Good morning, Bubby. I miss you. Please call me." And then he sent another saying, "Nikki just messaged me. You want to meet up in Burlington for some snacks and whatnot?" Later on that day at 2:03 p.m., he texted her again saying, quote, "Hello," and then another one later on that night saying, "Please, pick up." And then the following morning on October 18th, so the day before his arrest at 12:05 a.m., he texted her once again saying, quote, "This has gone far enough. Get your ass home. I got to go back to NH. Are you coming back?" And then sent another one at 1:05 a.m. saying, "Random question. Where's the extension cord? I want to plug the fan in." And then later on that morning, at 9:06 a.m., he texted again saying, "Good morning, baby," with an emoji at the end. And then another one at 10:25 a.m. saying, "You're an asshole. I don't deserve this shit."
This case and this crime is about ego. Mr. Ferlazzo's ego. And Mr. Ferlazzo's nearly 42-year-old ego being unable to accept his 22-year-old wife disrespecting him. We are confident that you will find that Mr. Ferlazzo killed Emily and that killing was unlawful. There was no legal justification for it. It was willful, it was intentional, it was deliberate, and it was premeditated. And the state requests that you find him guilty of first-degree murder.
And that is when Joseph Ferlazzo was found guilty for the murder of Emily Ferlazzo and was given 42 years to life in prison, believing that what actually happened that night was Joseph did indeed shoot Emily twice in the head, but had actually placed a red pillow over her head, kind of acting as a silencer. He then shot Emily twice in the head, and then after that took 3 kitchen knives from the kitchen block and stabbed her 18 more times after she was already dead. And then at the end of the trial is when Emily's family got to go up and say their statement and talk about how Emily's death has affected them over the past 3 years.
I first met Emily in 2012. She thought I looked like the star of the then popular movie Despicable Me. So to mock her mom's new boyfriend, she started calling me Gru. So I started calling her Minion. We used those nicknames daily up until her death. Emily was my minion. I was her Gru.
Joseph Ferlazzo took away my closest friend I ever had. Emily was my soul sister. Every year that I get older, it is the same day that my best friend, her life ceased to exist. I lost a part of my soul on October 16th, 2021.
I'm going to tell you about my beautiful daughter, Emily, and the impact her murder has had on me. She enjoyed friendships, singing. She could sing the socks off of any song she connected with. Painting, riding her bike, being a big sister, and dance classes. She will forever be 22, just at the cusp of adulthood.
That is the end of today's case. I would love to hear all of your guys' comments about the case down below. And yeah, that is all from me. I hope you guys have a wonderful and safe day out there. And as always, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.